Hi, who are you? What's your name? What do you do?
My name is Amit Prakash. I am CEO of a company called A79 and also co-founder and former CEO of a company called ThoughtSpot.
And what are you spending most of your time on now? A79?
Mostly A79, yeah.
And what
So
does A79 do?
A79 is building a platform for making AI agents where the key idea is how do you design it in a way that people using those agents can be constantly coaching them and improving them and kind of hyper personalizing it for their own needs.
Yeah, you mentioned that in your talk this morning, the panel, how you have to treat training the agents almost as if you're training a human.
Yeah.
Can you expand a little bit on that metaphor or analogy, whichever one that is?
Yeah, so what happens is that whenever we are doing a task, there are hundreds of granular little insights that we have that informs things that we do, even if it's something as simple as like writing a report, sending an email, to like creating large marketing campaigns, to doing competitive intelligence. There's a lot of nuanced knowledge that is there locked in our heads that's just not there on the internet for LLMs to learn from. So I'll give you an example. We were building an agent for building competitive intelligence for pharmaceutical companies, and it's a fairly successful agent. Like the reaction from the customer was that this is replacing 6 months of work for a team of 20 people by gathering a lot of
Which is significant when you count the numbers and time as money type of thing.
Yeah. But as we were building it, we received a ton of feedback. And at some point, the feedback was that you're talking about all the drugs that are relevant, but the order in which you're talking about it is wrong because we care about this drug a lot more than this drug, and this drug is almost like an afterthought and it's coming on top of the list. So when people read it, they lose interest. How do you get which drug is more significant than the other? Well, maybe you can go to the investor relations presentation and see in what order the company talks about it, and that gives you some relevant information, right? Nobody has documented that anywhere, right? But when they look at this output, they see something that they don't like, and then they have a piece of feedback. Now, in the traditional world, what that would mean is that somebody takes that as a feature request, puts it in bug tracking. Sometime later, some developer picks it up, builds that feature, then deploys it, goes through a deployment cycle. A month later, this comes out. Imagine being able to say that and then improve that agent right on the spot. It's not the fact that you got the result in hours instead of a month. What matters is that in a month of using, you would have done 300 iterations, right? And with those 300 iterations, it's an exponential effect on how effective and good the software
So what makes humans having that certain bit of knowledge, that kind of je ne sais quoi, right?
Yeah.
Is this long context window that humans have, right? As much as their kind of brain power and memory would allow. So you pick up kind of subtle bits of information that feed into that helps you kind of make that decision.
Yeah.
As you said, traditionally when we train software, there's a repeatability, right? And there is an expected outcome.
Yeah.
But as with humans in education, you could have the same educational system and have variability and output, right?
Yeah.
And so you have this kind of uncertainty within that.
Yeah.
So would you have that same, can you predict that this bit of information that I'm kind of training the agent to absorb will be consistent across all kind of similar situations? Or is that unpredictability built into even those agents learning, which may affect outcome and expected outcome?
So the difference between agents and humans is that you cannot go inside somebody's brain and see kind of the processes through which the
chain of thought, right?
The chain of thought. Like you can see kind of, they can give you the stream of consciousness as it comes, but that's usually an afterthought that like you try to construct the narrative as opposed to how it happened. Whereas in case of agents, it's like an open box and you can go and see like, okay, this thing did this thing did this thing did this. And if I want more control and predictability, I can go and turn the right knobs and make it predictable.
Modulate.
But predictability is not always the best thing for the outcomes that you're trying to achieve.
Because the basis of disruption
Yeah.
is unpredictability.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So then if you lose control of that and you
Yeah.
rely on the AI agent to have that in
Yeah.
order to kind of differentiate and
Yeah.
things like that, and then even in the modulation, it may not be effective. How do you kind of keep control of that? Insofar as, okay, I've made this investment,
Yeah.
this agent has this prime directive, they're supposed
Yeah.
to analyze drugs and stuff. I'm going to modulate for them to optimize on that.
Yeah.
But then there's that unpredictability, and there's, as a customer,
Yeah.
how can I know what you're doing is kind of,
So-
the right way to go about it?
The more I think about AI as a technology, all the human analogies tend to work very well. So how do you do quality control of humans that
Performance reviews, right?
exactly.
Right.
So you need other agents that are monitoring the work of these agents, and those agents themselves need coaching and training on what to look for, what are the possible bad things, how do you do quality control. So
And that feedback helps that agent improve.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a hive mind that you have to create within a particular domain of information or knowledge or something. Right?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So a couple more use cases maybe in terms of, you mentioned pharma. What other type of use cases do you run into? And then why would a customer, what kind of problem does a customer need to have to say, I'm going to call Amit and try to solve this? What's the pain point?
Yeah, so we have been working with three kinds of customers, some pharmaceutical customers across their R&D, commercial, regulatory, all different departments. We've been working with private equity customers, and this is more around researching companies, doing due diligence, looking at the data room and making data conclusions. So not just the traditional, sort of, most people know of like LLMs handling unstructured data, but we're doing a lot with the structured data as well to be able to figure
Balance
out.
that and stuff, quick question about ThoughtSpot. And so what, that's quite an achievement. What do you feel is a lasting impact on that? And is it fulfilling the vision that you had when you started, the company? Is it, you don't have to talk about specifically, but in terms of, like where technology is going and how it's adapting and stuff, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I think ThoughtSpot has been a great story and continues to be a great story. It's a rapidly evolving and innovating company. So you will see a lot coming out of ThoughtSpot. I'm deeply involved, but there's a new leadership and it's kind of...
They're hanging on them, right?
And they're doing a really great job. I think what has happened is that for last 10-12 years, we were building a lot of things without LLMs to make this vision of people asking questions and getting answers, or automated getting insights out. And then LLMs came along, and what we realized was that everything that we had built was really complementary to LLMs. LLMs are great at like language understanding, code generation, and just in general world knowledge. What they don't have is a lot of domain-specific knowledge about data, and this is where ThoughtSpot's indexing capability, its feedback loop capability, and
Context
everything,
and all that stuff,
and all of that, the semantic layer, all of that kind of, when you combine that with LLM, you get really powerful results. So what I feel is that ThoughtSpot is kind of way ahead of rest of the market as far as technology is concerned. I think there's some serious work to be done on the marketing side, because the people who know ThoughtSpot know, but I think if you sort of sample 100 people who know about data and AI work in data space, there will be very few who would have actually had direct experience with ThoughtSpot. So that's where the company needs to do a lot. And then the whole technology landscape is shifting and going towards agentic, and ThoughtSpot is riding that wave.
Okay, good. Last question.
Yeah.
So I'm a career coach, and so I work with a lot of mid-career and late-career, type of people trying to navigate, the kind of choppy waters of AI and stuff. You as a leader, obviously make a lot of hiring decisions. What do you look for when you look for to hire somebody, and what kind of advice can you give, especially older workers who are trying to kind of adjust to this? What kind of advice would you give? What do you look for? What kind of advice would you give?
So, like I was talking about on the stage, the temperature of world has increased quite a bit, which means that you can't take things for granted, but also it's a good thing that nobody can take things for granted. Things are going to change. The world order is going to change. What's hot today or what was an asset today may not be an asset tomorrow. And so in this kind of setup, the people who win are the ones who have the most open mind and experimental mindset and the risk mindset. And so you need to have the scientific method experiment mindset of, I don't know what the future is going to look like. Nobody knows. I'm going to do a bunch of experiments, learn from them, and successively improve.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
I've always seen like AI could be the great equalizer. In
Yeah.
other words, if you're an older person,
Yeah.
you got to compete against a 25-year-old who could just, slam a six-pack of Coke and keep cranking away. You got responsibilities and things like that.
Yeah.
If you're able to use AI and able to scale your productivity
Yeah.
and incorporate it with your experience and
Yeah,
that
yeah.
differentiator,
Yeah.
that could equalize or help equalize the job
I mean,
market. And stuff. So you're not necessarily going to be out to pasture because
I mean, in some ways, you have an advantage because, like, I know engineering the most. I'll talk about engineering. What a junior engineer does is going to be a lot easier to do with AI. What a senior engineer does, which is take their years of experience and architect design the software architecture and make sort of right bets about like how to build for future and how to design the testing framework, how to use the underlying systems, and what are the metrics to care about, what are the metrics not to care about. That takes years of experience, and that stuff is not there in AI yet. It will be at some point.
well, those junior AIs are going to be senior AIs.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Good luck with that, with everything. All right, thank you.